What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Wing and Tail Boys podcast, your Northeast hunting and fishing destination. I'm Chris.
And I'm Angelo.
And we're your hosts. Join us as we navigate the woods and waters of the Northeast, sharing our passion for the outdoors.
Whether it's land management, outdoor recreation, hunting, or fishing, we're going to cover it all. With 40 plus years of experience in the Northeast, we'll provide insights, tips, and stories to help you make the most of your adventures and help you experience the wild.
So, tune in, grab your gear, and let's hit the woods together. And always remember, success is just a commitment away. How are we doing, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another episode of the Wing and Tail Boys. Joining me today is Dorge for the seventh episode of the Aero Flight Science series. How are you doing today, Dorge?
I'm quite well.
Awesome. As we're recording this, it is Tuesday, January 28th. You're going to be going to the outdoor show this weekend, which is a little odd because by the time this episode drops, the outdoor show is going to have been passed. So hopefully you have a good experience down there. We're going to welcome you with open arms to Pennsylvania. And unfortunately, I can't make it because that's the day of my wife's baby shower. Maybe I'll be able to get to you the next weekend, maybe not. But I think I'm gonna have my brother and my cousin try to stop by because they're all gonna be.
Well, it's February 1st to February 9th, so you got all this time.
Yeah, I've got that following weekend too. If I wanted to try to come down.
Yeah, try it. I mean, it don't hurt. I got a field dealer coming to me to do the class while I'm in the booth from Tuesday, Thursday, Wednesday, I believe. So
okay.
if you are one of the people who want to join the class, go for it. But too bad. I mean, this thing won't air until it's finished.
Yeah. Yeah, but you know what? For myself and the listeners listening too, I mean, all of those classes that you have, those courses are all posted on YouTube, aren't they? On Fire Knock TV.
Correct. Those are official classes, and of course, this is going to be my the classes that I'm doing is really got hands-on class. It's a little bit different.
I got
because you understand. I got a lot of dealers who are Amish.
And,
they don't have internet.
Right.
So I had to come up with method for them.
Yep. Well, I'll tell you what, Angelo and I, we've been talking about maybe coming out to your shop over the summer, visiting in person, maybe getting to record a couple episodes, learning how to build some of these things.
And if you do
I think that'd be awesome.
Do a full class with you and record it.
Absolutely.
So
that'd be great.
We can do a lot of Q&A for that.
Okay.
Well, just like the previous episode, this is going to be focused on anything under 204 to start with. I don't know how far I want to go, but I want to go the next step. That's 235 and most probably touching 204. And I'll leave 166 all by itself because it's a very involved build.
I got you. So we're going to be going 234 and...
The 235 and 204.
235 and 204.
Right, but that is still a lot of arrows in between. Like the ACCs, like the ACC 349, 329, and 319. They're all between that section. And then we also got some oddballs, like the Black Eagle, what are they called? The 230. So when you got some weird size like this,
the Spartans.
It's nothing.
You're talking about the Spartans, the Black Eagle Spartan.
The Spartans.
Yep.
I mean, the reason that Black Eagle makes Spartan because it is the smallest size you can actually use to fit as an insert inside arrow.
So I'm sorry, repeat that?
The Spartan 230 is the smallest size arrow you can fit with a standardized AMO, your 832 inserts. Okay. Anything smaller than that, it becomes the 204 class.
I got you. Oh, I got. So we're okay in the classes. That makes sense. Yeah, because my cousin and I, we were just talking before this episode about trying to build an arrow concept, and he had some Spartans at home, and he was interested in building a 300. He thought the Spartans were 300. We go and look at the website. It says 235. I go, what in the world is a 235?
No, it's not a 235. It's a 230.
230. Yeah.
Because the 230, just so you know, there's actually two sizes in there. The 235 is actually a size that's original happened with the ACC 349, which is also the same size as the Eastern called the Excel, the Epic, the Micro Waddell, all of them are the 235 size.
Really?
Yes. They are not 7mm. They are actually closer to the 6mm. And then, of course, the 204 is considered a 5mm, and the 166 is a 4mm. So the 235 is actually a 6mm class.
I got you.
At least all Easterns. I mean, remember, the 235 is an Eastern size.
Yeah.
But Eastern have been making...
Sorry, go ahead. Easton's been making... So I'm sorry.
Eastern been making that the Epic and Excel since the 2000s. So they're making it for 25 years.
I got you.
And then when I discovered that the Black Eagle Spartan was a 230, I thought, like, what the hell?
That's what I'm saying, man. Sometimes I sit back and I think, and I'm like, life used to be so much simpler when it was just 166, 204, 246. Life was so much simpler back then.
Never did. People just do not know what it is.
Right. So, we touched on the last episode how it can be kind of overwhelming for some people, starting to learn this stuff. And you have all of these options and which arrow is better. And, people say thinner arrows are better because you have better penetration. And, bigger arrows are better because they cut the line better. And today's episode, I think, is going to kind of clear the air with all of that. Right? Because
in some way we do, but also tell you the benefit of each.
Yes.
Now, as the size of the arrow goes down, so does durability. But that is based on if the 204 or any size is made of the same material.
Right. And as we talked about in the past, just because something says carbon fiber, it doesn't mean they're made out of the same carbon fiber.
Or the same construction approach.
Right.
The same fiber lay. I mean,
the same temperature, the same humidity, the same, and the list goes on and on and on.
And most important, the entire construction process.
Right. So when we say, a smaller diameter arrow is better than a 246, or a 246 is better than a thin arrow, whatever the case, whichever way you say it, where it's implied that we're assuming that everything is built the same.
All right.
Okay.
But the fact is that the moment when you decrease or increase the size, you optimize it. And based on the pricing point you want to hit, the material, the construction approach, the design approach can be totally different.
Right. It's kind of like driving a car. Cars have 4 doors, right? Cars have, you look at a pickup truck. For the most part, all pickup trucks offer the same thing these days. Which one's going to last you the longest? It's probably going to be a Toyota. Right. So right. They're still trucks, but each one is made a little bit differently. Some last better than others. Some can tow better than others. Some can, whatever the case is. Right.
Absolutely. See, now, just like I said, the 235 size, or in other words, 230. The moment you go into those size, you are locked into one thing only. You need, with the 235, at least we at Fine Art give you a reverse taper insert. And we flared it up to 8mm. So you don't have to go with the really weird size. Okay, because your 5/16 is no longer the 5/16. You're going for 930 seconds. So your fuel point and everything will no longer work. So if you shoot an animal using the 6mm without a flare point, the moment your animal goes in or target goes in, your fuel point is going to catch on the bag.
Yes.
So you're now looking at 930 seconds fuel points and 930 second broadheads and so on. And at this moment, not even we make adapter for that. Okay. So you are looking at what you're looking at.
Right. So just I've always meant to ask you this question. I keep forgetting. Why does Easton choose to go 6mm, 5mm? Why do they choose to go millimeters when everyone else seems to go thousandths of an inch?
Is it just the world, as I remember back when I was in primary school, that will be in the 1970s. I was in Hong Kong. The Hong Kong government said that, hey, we're no longer using catty and tails. We should not use pound and ounces. We'll just go SI. And we got notice of one thing. Next thing you know, everything is millimeter. So does the American car industry. So does the American military, supposedly. But then archery is a very, very old deal because Eastern started all those just up to World War II. So we're talking 1960s and so on.
That's when Easton started?
Moving. Because of World War II, archery finally come out, then people actually have archery. Otherwise, it's all a custom deal.
Okay.
So Mm-hmm.
I've got a fun little fact for you.
Sure.
So did you know that somewhere in the, I don't know, 70s, 80s, somewhere around there, America was actually gearing up to switch from standard to metric?
Absolutely.
Do you know why? Do you know why they stopped?
I do not know why, but I know they actually tried twice, and both times was reverted.
Yep, it's because all of the business owners and large companies and corporations, they got annoyed because all of their machines and all of their products were programmed to print everything in standard. And they didn't want to spend the overhaul money to sit there and overhaul everything and convert everything to metric. So instead of joining the rest of the world, they decided to scrap it. And it's really unfortunate because, in my opinion, metric system is so much easier to work with. To convert from meters to kilometers to decameters, it's all powers of 10. But when you go from inches in a foot, 12, feet in a yard, 3, yards in a mile, I couldn't even tell you.
1860. and not to mention, look at it. We deal with the stuff like grains.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't we use? Like grains, ounces. Okay.
Yep.
Those are so much more difficult. Like, why do we need nautical miles to start with?
I don't know. Isn't it the same thing as a regular mile?
No, it's not.
No, I know it's not, but I'm just saying, like, a mile's a mile, right? So anyway,
kilometer. But
yeah,
anyway,
not the detour too far.
But it is what it is, and just like now when I buy a scale, you have grains, grams. Another word, carat. Yeah,
yep.
It's all there.
Yeah, and then you get into science, and it's the same thing. Kelvin, Celsius, Fahrenheit. There's a whole bunch of.
Well, Kelvin is easy. It's the same as Celsius. You just minus 275 and be done with it. 375 and be done with it.
Okay.
I mean, the thing is that. Oh, let me tell you a fun story.
I love stories.
When I first day I was in America, I was in IGMA in IU, the dorm. I was really tired. I mean, I missed, the people do not know my dad screwed up on my arrival time on 12 hours. That was 1983 summer. I only have a winter jacket, my jeans and my shirts. I go into the IGMA and say, this place is freaking cold. They had turned the air conditioning to the bejesus. So I go there and say, oh, I'm going to raise the temperature. I look at that meter, I say, oh my God, they said there's 60% efficiency. I need to lower it, be less efficient. So I turned the thing down to like 50. I was freezing my ass. Then I found out those are not efficiency.
No. Yeah, that's a big difference, man.
I think, first of all, I look at it and say, it cannot be. This is about 25 degrees Celsius. But I think Celsius. When I look at that thing, it was showing Fahrenheit.
That's incredible.
Because it never clicked to me because I was so freaking tired. Oh, because I saw 100. I say, oh, that's 100% efficiency. Okay, I better lower the efficiency.
Oh my goodness, that's incredible. Dorge, I'm sorry to break. I just need 30 seconds. My dog is screaming downstairs.
No problem. I'm sorry.
We'll cut this off. My dog is funny, man. You could have 10 people walk up to the house. He won't bark at anybody. And one person walks up that he doesn't like, he loses it.
No, not a problem. We just cut that part off and we are all good to go.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so like with all the other episodes, building through this, we want to build off of the 246. The 246 is considered the standard arrow.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the reason? We talked about the purpose of going larger, 300, 335, and so on. What was the reasoning for wanting to find an arrow smaller than 246?
Well, first of all, when you build an arrow that's smaller in diameter on the OD, you now can make thicker walls. Thicker wall means that for cheaper material, or if you use cheaper material, also means more durable. And for that, the smaller size you can comfortably make into an insert system is 235. Using rough machines. We're talking using rough screw machines without too much accuracy. The fact is that the smallest you can make using a screw machine have the true thread. The answer is 230, which is what the Spartan is.
Right.
So the difference between a Spartan and an Eastern, say, Michael Waddell or Hex, is the 5,000s.
To 5,000. And that 5,000 makes a big difference, right?
Correct. When you're getting small. Remember, as you get smaller, the thousands get bigger in percentage.
Mm-hmm.
So for 235, the only thing we offer from Fine Art is a stainless steel reverse taper insert for the 235.
Mm-hmm.
We do make aluminum for the 230 because as you grow into smaller size, the concentricity of the insert to the shaft get even more important.
Mm-hmm.
So the hydro flow process of installing it become more and more important.
So why is that? Why is it more important to be concentric on a 204, let's say, than it is on a 246?
Because ratio.
Okay.
Think about it. 1,000 on a 235, just do the measurement. Say 2,000's off on a 235 and then compared to 246 over 1,000. The percentage is bigger.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense.
It's pure math. It's like if you do not install it, if you're off by 2,000, what's the percentage off?
I gotcha. And just for the listeners, concentricity essentially means making sure that all of your components are centered into the center of your shaft, from your insert to your inner tube if you end up using one, to your knock, to your field point, everything from the front of your arrow to the back of your arrow. You want them to be completely centered, so everything as it rotates. The way I like to think about it is like old washing machines that had to be balanced. And if your washing machine, if anyone uses a top-loading washer, that you know that it fills with water and it balances itself before going through its cycle. And if you have a washing machine that's completely off balance, the longer it's spinning, the more that washing machine is going to start to rock. It's the same reason why you get your wheels balanced on a truck or on a car. Because if you don't, eventually it's going to throw your car off. The faster you go, the more dangerous it becomes. So
exactly.
just to go over the concept of concentricity. Yeah.
See, a lot of people that say concentricity, isn't it the same as a runoff on an arrow shaft? Answer to that is no. Concentricity and runoff are two different things. They work against each other.
What is runoff? I've never heard that before.
The runoff is, for example, like the strictness.
Gotcha.
That means ideally you build a shaft of 32 inch from one side to the other side, the whole strictness. Well, actually, we don't even know that. We only know from the center offset on 28 inches. And then you do a full circle, the center part on the gauge of the variance. Less than 1,000 is called 1,000 strictness. And then the tip of the arrow, and you put on, say, a fine arc PAPS stitch analog gauge. You can put a gauge on it, and you turn the arrow in one full turn. That the movement of that gauge is called the runout.
Gotcha. Okay, that's interesting. I've never heard that before.
Runouts are not the same as strictness, and the strictness is not the same as measured strictness. Okay. Now, let me give you an idea. The standard in the archery industry is 27 or 20. 27 or 20 inch in the center, off center. You got a laser beam coming down to the center of the arrow, and you do a full turn. If we say 1,000, the arrow is 1,000 strictness as far as the manufacturer is concerned. So what happened when you got an arrow that's S-shaped and pass all 3 points exactly within 1,000? And this can be 10 or 15 or 30,000. As long as the industrial measurement is concerned, this is still 1,000. Because your anchor point and your center measuring point do not change. Whatever happened to the 4 parts, does not matter.
Okay, that kind of seems counterproductive to me a little bit, but you know.
But then, of course, you got guys like Rick McKinney, which I consider one of the more anal person like myself. He actually put 7 gauges on the entire shaft and then do a 1 circle. That means when Rick McKinney told you that he got a shaft that's close to 1,500, that's 1,500.
He means it. Now, yes. as a math teacher, I've learned things along the way, right? As far as specifically as statistics are concerned. And one thing that I learned is that you can literally make the numbers represent whatever you want them to, as long as you know how to manipulate them.
Correct. You know, and unfortunately, most people, does 1,000 strictness always better than 3 and 5,000? Theoretically, actually, yes. But the fact is that 1,000, 3,000, 5,000, 7,000. What does the arrow have impact on your shooting?
It depends on how good you are at building your arrows.
You got it.
And it depends on Well, if you're not good at building your arrows, you want the straightness. And if you are good at building your arrows, then it doesn't matter because your vanes are going to be more important than the straightness anyway.
In so many ways it does. And not to mention, as we go further into the building process, since we're going to touch 204 today, the straightness of the arrow and concentricity of the arrow. Concentricity is a whole lot more critical than straightness. Yes. And as I go into building the 204 components we talk about, you'll find that the component build has such big impact on no matter what the straightness is, because you screw this up royally. That's the reason. See, I remember when Exodus asked me to design an arrow for them to sell for the 204. As an initial arrow, I tell them, you're out of your mind. No, I'm seriously. That's what I told. I say, you're out of your mind. You won't be able to handle the 204. And after they built 246, and then the next year they built the 204, the NIS. They
have them both.
They absolutely proved me that I was so right. It's not even funny.
I've shot them both. I shot the MMT and I shot the NIS. I actually shot the 204 first and then went to the 246. So it's all good.
So I mean, they perform about the same, but the build, the you call it, the focus and the attention to detail on the 204, I would say it's really 5 to 10 times more needed to build.
If you're anything like me, you love to customize your bow while always making sure everything is just spot on. That's why I trust Anthony and Chris over at Big D Custom Pro Shop. They're located on Route 15 in Lake Hopatcong, New Jersey, and they have everything you need to tune your bow. And I promise you're going to leave there with a smile on your face. So, if you live in northern New Jersey, give my boy Big D a shout for all your archery needs. When I head out to the woods, I have to know that I have the best performing equipment that I can afford. So that way I'm the only variable that I have to worry about. That's why I trust Fire Knock products for all my arrow and bow accessory needs. From arrow components to bow accessories like stabilizers and arrow rests, they have what you need. Dorge won't put anything on the market if it doesn't perform 50% better than what's already out there. So head on over to fireknock.com today to see what they're all about.
Now, let's go back into it. Now, we talk about 235 and so on. It is indeed the smallest. If you want a basic insert system, a basic insert system have a lot of benefit, because what we are really looking at is the lip of the insert. Remember that word, because that is going to be so critical when we talk about 204.
The lip
of the insert.
Gotcha.
That means the part that you can visually see, the silver part or silver black part on the very tip of the insert when you put it inside the arrow shaft. That's where all the problem is.
Why is that? Or what problems are you referring to? Let's start there.
I'm gonna explain. Remember when you're going to 204, 246, or 244, or 242. So when you put the insert into the shaft, you want it to be concentric. I mean, we already said that the all my final insert, A or H both have the reverse taper. The whole idea is that if you chamfer your shaft and the reverse taper insert, when they go on top of each other, it should concentric, right? Because just like the shaft is behaving like a ball, like a chamfer shaft onto a funnel, you will always find it self-centered. But then when you put this arrow onto the table, that lip is always larger than the shaft. Maybe not much. Ideally, instead, the lip is going to be identical to the shaft. The fact is that it can never happen. Do you know why? Because imagine in 246, your wall thickness is like 15,000. So 246 plus 30,000 should be the ideal OD of the insert. The fact is that we can never do that. We have to make it based on the bigger shaft. So the rest is going to be smaller. Am I right?
I got you.
So when you put the arrow onto the table, you're going to canter that insert because the arrow shaft will push down, and then all of a sudden the insert is going to go like this. So if the insert is 242 in the case of 246, the insert is 242, and your tube ID is 246. You just allow 4 thousandths of cantering. In the case of 235, and we know that we make the insert for the 235 to be 242 or 243, 232 and 233, because you need at least 1,000 of glue to go around it. So you push it in, you concentrate everything, and you lay that thing on the table. Next thing, the insert going to go this. Now you have 2,000 play in it.
Yes.
And people say, oh, no problem. I will just square my insert until it's flush. Now, this is the real question. What's the inside of the arrow? That insert with where the thread is now going to be forced. In other words, this is your field point, this is your screw. You go in, it's going to be forced like this.
Yeah. And then then when you shoot it, it's gonna be angled, and you're not gonna get direct
and not to mention,
impact.
As your broadhead length increases, your broadhead is going to fly like this.
It's gonna get worse and worse and worse and worse.
The longer the broadhead, the worse it flies.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Now,
that's just simple angles.
Right. The 246 we can afford maybe something like a 5,000 to 8,000 head, which is where the exposed part.
Okay.
The 235, you're looking at about 8,500 to 10,000 on the exposed part. Because as the shaft decreases in diameter, the wall thickness increases. That means the head had to be bigger because the angle of this part is bigger.
Right.
So now you're seeing that from 246 to 230, the head is already bigger. Because on top of that, the head also have to slant downwards because you want to fit an 8 millimeter. And the shaft is 7 millimeter. So now you want to have 1 full millimeter rip around it. So you got this and this and this to deal with.
So all of that to say, we can alleviate this issue by simply installing your inserts and letting them dry upright instead of laying on the table.
After you hydro spin them. Now, that's about all we can talk about 235. Now, the beauty is not on the front. Okay. On the back, the 235, because when I first started making fire knocks, the people out in Presley, out of Illinois, the archery manager loved the ACC 349, which is the 235. So it's the ACC Pro Hunter. They're all 235.
Okay.
And he begged me. He said he will buy at least a few hundred packs if I just make the knot to fit it. Well, guess what? Because at that time, just before he talked, the number one arrow at that time in 2006, in that 235 size, besides the ACC 349, or later, which got ACC Pro Hunter, is the Epic and the Excel arrow.
And those are the
People will start with your E. Yeah. That's the reason the Final E is the 235.
Hey, I like that. The origin story, if you will.
Exactly, because you need to understand why I called it the E, because it was for the Epic and Excel.
Okay. And do you also offer, so if you make the knock for a 235, do you also offer a lighted knock system for the 235, or is it only
It is the same system as the 244. It's the same identical inside.
Really? The end cap is the same as well?
The end cap is the same. Just if you look at the A and E end cap, you have two grooves. The small groove is for the 2.5 by 1.0. On the first groove, you go in the 204. The 2.3, the 235 times 1.0 O-ring will go into larger groove. That will fit the 235 ID.
I never noticed.
Now the end cap and the knock, the end cap, the computer are all the same. The only difference between the knock and the O-ring use.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, because if you're one of those enthusiasts who really like this, we at Fireman actually sell something very, very interesting. It's called the table mat, which all our dealers love it, and we sell it for under $20.
Hey, you just got a little low as you were walking away there. Can you repeat what you said? What's it called now?
A lot of my dealers love this thing. You see, we make the table mat.
Oh, the table mat. I got you. Yep.
This is actually the same material. Actually, this is made in Alaska. Can you believe it?
Really?
That's the only place in America you can get this kind of material.
What material? What material is it?
It's the same as a mouse pad.
Ah, okay. So what is it, like similar to neoprene?
Yes, it's exactly. It's a neoprene with a printable color.
That's awesome.
All of my dealer and like I put it on my glass top under my computer and everything because it's such an easy thing and it's so washable.
Yeah, and it's grippy. Well, anyway. It's very grippy. You know, if you don't want stuff to slide around.
On this part, yep. A and E, same end cap, same computer.
Okay.
A and E, same weight.
Right.
Same battery all the way. See, this pretty much tell you exactly how everything do.
That's good to know because I have some batteries sitting around that I had for my 166s. I could use them for like target practice and not waste my good batteries. You can use it for anything. That's awesome.
I'm actually I've got enough of that. I may just simply do a good deal and sell them for. I will make it. You know what? Since we talk about it, at the end of the day, I would change the price of that for 15 for you guys for all the way until this batch is sold out. How's that?
Sounds great to me. So what is it? And so if anyone calls in and says, "Hey, I heard you're running a deal, and I heard you on the Wing and Tail Boys," that's that.
Yep. So I'm going to change the price for you guys. But anyway, so the A and right now we're talking E. When you say mention E means 235. When I say A means 204.
Okay.
So that was one critical part. So for people who want Spartan and they absolutely have no way in hell to get a lighter knock, the fact is that they can with fire knock. Because see, when I designed the E, it's not just ACC 349. That's also 339 and 319. So what I designed is that I designed that the E knock, which is this knock right here.
Yep. And for our listeners, real quick, if you guys are listening to this, Dorge is showing a lot of good stuff. He's holding some stuff up here. If you're listening to this, it might be a good idea to go and watch this episode on our YouTube channel instead of just listening to it, so you can get the visual of everything that Dorge is showing us here as well.
I'll describe it a little bit. The E knot is technically the A knot with a much taller rib, and the OD of the E knot is actually closer to 250 because you got a wall thickness.
Right.
Okay, 250 plus 15 is 265. We make it about 255 on the OD. The reason I do that because at that time there's a lot of really weird size, like Nitro Stinger. That Nitro Stinger is 230. Okay? It's made by an aerodynamic solution. It's the tapered arrows. A lot of people, all these weird size arrows, or the Alaska called the whatever stick.
Grizzly stick. Yep.
Right.
How do you feel about how do you like the tapered arrows? Just
tapered arrows are one of the best thing that ever made.
Really?
As long as you are shooting a recurve.
Gotcha. Okay.
Is it good as a compound bow? Absolutely. The downside is that we, at this moment, cannot afford to make those arrows perfect.
God,
that means
too
every
expensive.
Single tapered arrow will shoot differently.
Well, it makes sense because you can't. It doesn't sound like you can extrude it. How would you extrude a tapered arrow?
No, you actually wrote it on a tapered mandrel.
Gotcha.
The problem is not the mandrel. The problem is that you cannot possibly lay the carbon fiber on that tapered mandrel with 100% identical fiber lay. The company who did it and did it perfectly is Syncroid, the one who make fishing rods.
Yes.
They call it the EPS system. Now you know why Syncroid, when they go through taper, are so perfect, because they use computer tension control adjustments. So every single fiber that go onto that taper mandrel are absolutely perfectly laid every single time. Now, you have to buy a dozen Syncroid fishing rod to shoot your arrows. They're not cheap.
and has any arrow company ever tried to reach out to St. Croix and say, "Hey, you guys have mastered the tapered. Mm-hmm. Why don't we link up and work together and make tapered arrows?" Has anyone tried to reach out to them?
$3.5 million. Go for it.
$3.5 million, you said?
Yes.
For what?
For the taper fiber control machine.
Okay, so the machine, so it would be just $3.5 million just for the machine alone.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. I see the problem
now. Because originally that machine, in my understanding, okay, don't quote me 100%. My understanding is that that machine was made for the carbon fiber lay for the helicopter blade. Then they make a downgrade version to make for fishing rods. Maybe today we can do a downgrade version again. The fact is that, to be frank with you, I think I can build it, but I don't think the world is ready for it. And that's not really major benefit in it. Because I already circumvent the process by using Aero Concept already. So, I want to push it further back when we talk about Aero Concept. And what's the benefit of the taper? But I would just do a fast run. The taper lab, you have different section with different tube dynamics characteristics. The larger the diameter in the front will have better resistance. The thinner diameter in the back give you a more durability. The transition is your problem.
Okay, well, from the bigger to the smaller, what's going on in the middle of that shaft?
The transition of the carbon fiber lay. Because the carbon fiber lay is not perfect. every arrow shoot differently because you can't. For example, like every arrow will have a different spine rating.
I got you. So maybe that's the next thing that we're going to see in the archery industry. Then a perfected arrow, a perfected tapered arrow.
It would not be cheap. Cool. I mean, to be fair on you, if I'm going to build this, I mean, like Eastern, they build the X10, the barreled arrow.
Yeah,
that for target is pretty much ideal.
I mean, there's people out there now. Yeah, there's people out there now selling and buying a dozen arrows for $1,000. You know what I mean? So it's not like there aren't people out there willing to spend the money on something that's.
I don't disagree. I mean, maybe it's time.
That'd be pretty cool.
Go back. Let's step back into the 204 sections a little bit more.
Yeah. So I think the last thing we talked about was the back of the. We talked about the back of the 235 and what's available. Is there anything else you want to touch on with the 235 before we move into 204?
The last part of the 235, because a lot of things I talk about is going to be applied to 204. Because notice a lot of components, which I show you the chart, they all use the same final components. But the 235, because the difference between the 235 and the 204, which is class arrow, is that the E-knock have a very tall, thick ribs. So theoretically, you can just shave the ribs to fit.
Okay.
So that if you want to use a final knock on the on other like a Spartan, on a 235, ACC 239, 219, and 228, you can actually shave the final knock rib and fit. Is that a perfect fit? No. But if you need it, that's the only way out. At least I give you a way out.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. Would it still be concentric at that point?
Well, at this moment, you'll be reasonable concentric because you're only. Think about it. It's 235 to 204. Okay, you're looking at 30,000. You got 15,000 reps. When you have 15,000 reps, and how much off can you get? You got 12 of them.
I got you.
So even if you shave a little bit off, eventually it will be close enough. You're looking at maybe 2,000 or 3,000 out.
And if you're building the rest of your arrow properly, and everything else is centered perfectly, then we can afford to give up a little bit to have the.
Because at that moment you don't have a choice. It's the only game in town. Now
I got you.
Now let's go to the troublesome and everybody loved 204.
Yep.
The 204 is called the A-knock for fire-knock, because it was the time the access come out. But guess what access the word start with? A. That's the reason it's called the A-knock.
That's great. So were each of your knocks built for a specific arrow at first? Like, was your A-knock made specifically for the axis?
Correct.
Gotcha.
Because at that moment, axis is the only one that's 204.
That makes sense
because
then.
Because it can come with the HIT system.
Gotcha.
Now let's talk about the beginning, the good and the bad of the HIT system. Okay?
Okay.
The HIT system stands for Hidden Insert Technology, HIT. What's the good and bad about it? The good is that you have no more lips of inserts.
So it alleviates that issue of laying it on the table and having it.
Well, it didn't. It's just hide it. Because every single HIT insert is guaranteed to be off.
Guaranteed.
Why did I say that?
I don't know much about the HIT system, so I don't know.
Okay, assume you have a 204 shaft.
Okay.
The HIT insert is a piece of aluminum or steel or copper that you use the tool to push into the shaft with the glue. Did I say the shaft ID is 204? The insert, at least 1,000, is 202. So imagine you got a tube, you got an inside sitting, and you cannot stand the arrow up or down, or else the piece will fall down or fall out.
Oh, shit.
So you're guaranteed to be at least 1,000 to 2,000 off center the moment you put it together.
And in this case, it's not angled. The whole thing is pushed to one side or the other.
Right.
Okay.
How can you alleviate it if you are one of the guys like me, super anal when I first used HIT? Is that you actually have to put it in a field point and you push it in. Now you got a problem. Because when you glue that with a field point, when you're gluing it, what's the chance of your field point actually got glued in with your insert?
So it's funny you say that, because I did a similar dumb thing when I installed my first set of end caps 3 years ago. I didn't listen to the 24-hour recommendation. I put the end cap in and I put the battery in right behind it, and that battery is still stuck to that end cap somewhere. I don't even know where that arrow is anymore because they were my 166s, and I don't use them anymore because of what we're going to be talking about here and on the next episode when we get into the 166s. But yeah, I see the problem. If you're using glue and you have to use a field point, the odds of gluing your field point to your insert and or shaft are pretty damn high.
Right. So under that condition, I do suggest people, you really want to use it, use the finer field point, use the O-ring, and then put some olive oil on the entire field point and squeeze it in. The chance, because of olive oil and the O-ring, will prevent the glue from gluing to the field point. The insert now, you can stand it straight up. And unless you're using superfluid epoxy, if we use the epoxy that's given by Eastern or all the 2-part epoxy, don't use fast set, slow set. At least a few hours, not the 5-minute deal. They are not good for you. You'll regret using them because they are brittle. Because the difference between fast set and slow set epoxy is the polymer structure. The fast set epoxy, the polymers are very short. The slow set, you build the polymer chain bigger. That's the reason it becomes more flexible. So on impact, it can handle the impact much better.
And cold as well. It can handle the cold a little bit better too.
Oh, definitely. And not to mention, the higher the temperature, the better the bonding because you're building a long carbon chain. Sorry, the chemistry professor.
There it is.
Come on.
Oh, there it is. There it is. You know, I bet you there's an over and under on how many episodes it's going to take to not involve chemistry here. But I don't think it's gonna happen.
Well, anyway, so you can understand why 204 is such important. But because 204, the whole concept of 204 is that you're using the idea of the shaft as to hold the shank of the broadhead. Then the HIT have one major problem, is that it doesn't have a barrier lip between the field point and the shaft. We all know one thing. When you hammer carbon fiber from the carbon tip end, you're going to have carbon powderization. That word is defined as that when carbon is being impacted, the resin is not holding. Using graphite, the carbon powder will form. The reason the carbon powder formation is that the impact had caused the resin to give, and the carbon molecule start crumbling. Which is also why if you shoot target with the HIT system on a carbon arrow, you're guaranteed to have a loose field point. Why? Because the carbon fiber is being compressed and knocked out.
Oh, correct. And a typical insert, whether it's an insert or a half out or whatever it is, it gives a little bit of a buffer between the field point and the carbon.
Well, actually, the force is applied from metal to metal. And the insert to the carbon fiber, there's always glue. It would do it as a sharp absorber prevention. So now, I remember when HIT first came out, the number one thing that a very, I would say, engineer-based company, new archery product, they actually got the HIT cap. So that you build this cap, you put this cap behind your field point or broadhead, and then you put it on the shaft.
And that was to try to alleviate the issues with the powderization?
You should glue that thing on top of the HIT as a cap. That's what it does.
Okay.
If you simply put the cap and then put a field point, it doesn't do anything for you.
Well, at least they recognized the issue and tried to alleviate it.
But a lot of people do not understand why it was there, and they did not glue it. The result is the same. But then if you really take a closer look at the design of that original called a broadhead adapter, it's nothing more than a super, super small insert with a lip. So you actually, remember the 5mm is trying to accommodate an 8mm broadhead. So the adapter is actually 1.5 millimeter slant on both sides.
Right.
Which now behave like this to the arrow shaft.
Oh my goodness.
See how that works? See, physics and geometry never lied.
No. So that specifically goes with the HIT system from Easton, right?
Correct. And then at the same time, that is a trophy rich coming with a 204. and then element have the 204, and then we have the carbon impact fat shaft, which is a 203, and then you need to know that 204 is a class name. It's not truly 204.
Right. The same with the 246 or the 300 or. Right. So my question for you real quick is, anyone who's shot a 204 or a 166 for that matter knows that you either need to use an outsert or a half out. Right. Did Easton make the HIT system in order to try to avoid needing a half out or a whole out?
Because a half out is so technically challenged. Because now remember we're talking about 230, 245 and 246, 235, the lip. In the case of the 204, because now you need to let the insert be inside the shaft for the 832 thread. So where is the space you need for the shank of the broadhead? It cannot be inside the shaft. Right. So the entire shank end up to be in front of the arrow, which now they call it the half out. The reason it's called half out because half of the insert is outside and half of the insert is inside. Now remember we're talking about the lip. On a 246 is about 15 to 30,000. In the case of the 235, it's about 10 to 15,000, all the way to 20,000.
And then what about
now,
the 204s?
In the case of a 204, you're looking at 500,000.
I mean, they're pretty big. Anyone who's shot, which is also for face value might be nice and say, hey, now I could cut my carbon an extra half-inch shorter. I can save a little weight. I can stiffen up my arrow. This is going to be awesome.
No, actually, you need to understand the node of your arrow is behind the insert. So when you put the carbon arrow together, you need to understand the node of a carbon arrow is about an inch away from the inside of your insert, then minus. So if you got an insert of 2 inch long, your node is usually an inch after the insert. So in the case of the HIT, so it's not carbon to carbon. You need to do carbon to carbon minus the knock, minus the insert, that's your carbon to carbon.
Yes. Yep.
On the calculation of bend, not on calculation of cutting carbon. So those are two totally different things. You need to think of the reaction of the carbon shaft itself compared to the building of the carbon shaft because you got insert coming in.
Okay.
Now, let me talk about how bad situation gets. Imagine you are now putting in a brass HIT insert, which happened to be about 1.25 inches long. Remember your viewpoint throw is ½ inch approximately. In actual terms should be 10.75 millimeter, which will equivalent to about 3/8 of an inch.
Okay.
We would for measurement purposes we call it 3/8. And then your HIT insert is say 1.25 inches. Now the whole thing is about 1.5 inches long, isn't it? That means that if you want to find the node should be start calculating for up to that 1.5 inches. So you actually need to cut your arrow a whole lot longer because you got all this stuff inside the arrow shaft.
And just we're going to
not contribute to the bend.
Right. Now we're going to talk about the node in the future when we get into how we build arrows, the different types of builds, we're going to get into what the node is. But just to keep things simple, the node is extremely important. Because it's the flex point of the arrow. So essentially, it's the only part of the arrow that doesn't flex up or down when that arrow flexes, and that's why you want that node of your arrow to sit on your arrow rest. Because if behind the node is on your arrow rest, your arrow is going to flex up, I believe, right? It's gonna push this way, and if it's in the front, then your arrow is going to go down. So
well, if you have the node, is not the major issue. The major issue is that when you flex, your arrow actually going to leave the arrow rest.
Whoa,
that's where the problem is. Think about it. If it's going to flex like this, on the secondary flex, it will behave like this.
Like a
because
spring.
You're not
doing
this
right
anymore.
Off. Right. Wow. I never even. Wow. That's interesting. I thought it was just so that way you could, it's in the same place every time. I didn't realize it literally comes off. That's incredible.
Not just come off. Now your entire arrow move with it. So assuming that it is do this, okay? Now the whole arrow is going to flex, and the whole parabolic action center is no longer the same because you're moving the whole center up and down. It's based on gravity.
I just kept getting deeper and deeper down this rabbit hole. This is awesome.
But am I right? I mean, it's
yeah.
pure physics.
No, it makes sense. It's one of those things that it makes perfect sense, and you don't recognize it until somebody points it out, and then you're like, well, how the hell did I not notice that?
Yeah, because now you're working with the CG of the entire arrow on the longitudinal axis shifting.
Right. No, that makes sense.
CG as center of gravity. That means you are changing the center of gravity of the entire up and down while you're shooting it.
Right. No, that's no good. We want to minimize movement in our arrow pre-release.
Exactly. Now you know how bad that note is. How bad when you're off note. You're screwing around with the CG of the entire launch cycle of your arrow shaft.
Okay, we're gonna take this. We're gonna pin it on our pin board because we're definitely gonna touch on that when we move further.
Now to make things, I'm saying 204. Now you recognize that. The good thing using a half out is that you now actually move the insert further into the front, because a half out only have half of its body inside the shaft compared to a full insert. Because the full insert is about inch to inch and a quarter. A half out is only half of it inside the arrow shaft. That creates a problem. You know what the problem is? Your entire centering tool is half the length.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Which means that if you canter that sucker, because it's shorter, it's more dramatic. Because see, just like I got a tube of 1 inch. If you cut a 1 inch tube and you're off by 1,000, the angle it off is about 1.25 degrees. But if the tube is half of it, the moment you angle, it becomes double the degrees.
Right.
Because your tube is shorter.
Yes. That makes perfect sense. But there is a benefit, right? Because if it's a half out and there's half of the length inside the arrow, well, now that allows us to cut the arrow shorter because the node is going to be farther towards the front of the arrow.
But you also have a different problem. You say you only have half the gluing surface. So now you need to increase the capability of the glue significantly. Because if the glue, say, the basic normal glue, you're looking at about 5,000 to 6,000 pounds per square inch. I mean, that's a lot. But then ask yourself, when you go to 204, is circumference times length is your total gluing surface. You don't have much.
No, not much at all.
That's the reason when you use 204 with half out, JB Weld, that kind of glue is the only thing you should use. Don't try your super glue gel and so on. They just won't last.
Now, I know you said to use slow set epoxy. At one point, I was looking at JB Weld because I was about a year ago, I was going to try to build Aero Concept myself. And when I started doing it, I realized that JB Weld literally sells like 13 different types of JB Weld.
You want a JB or black and red, black and white original.
Black and white original.
Yeah, because he's a black and white original, the black actually got iron powder in it. The beauty of iron powder is that the JB Weld hardening agent have oxygen molecule free flow in it. So what happens when you have iron molecule with oxygen free flow? You got iron oxide.
Well, we got
now you got
expansion.
You grab the sucker from inside out.
That's awesome. All right, so obviously we're starting to get into some of the downfalls of a 204 of a thinner arrow. Obviously, right off the bat, just by the way they have to be built, we're seeing that the components themselves create issues with the functionality of the arrow, how the arrow behaves. Right.
All right. That's the reason hydro flowing becomes so critical because your stem is shorter, your glue capacity is higher. And maintaining this concentric. That means just like one of my dealers, I would say the previous book holder archery, before Josh took over, he built all the 204 and laid every single one on the table after he glued it. Guess what? All of them are 10 to 15,000 right on the get-go on the insert on every single arrow.
Yeah.
You can't shoot the 15,000 off on insert and make it able to shoot. Yeah. You can't.
And every single half out that I've seen, and granted, I haven't used every single one. There's too many out there, but they're all tapered a little bit.
Correct.
So the front of that half out is going to be wider than the shaft. So right off the bat, you're going to have an issue. Now, everything we've talked about here so far has been either an issue or a benefit in the way you have to build the arrow. And we just talked about the node giving us trouble, which is at the instantaneous moment of release.
Mm-hmm.
Once that arrow's in the air, are there any benefits to having a thinner arrow? Is there anything that a thinner arrow does better than a standard arrow?
Actually, for testing purposes, we have shoot. On the last testing we did, we can shoot a 2764 and a 166 and a 125 at 60 yards. And with no vanes, they fly exactly the same under windy condition. Because you need to understand, 35 miles per hour.
No vanes. Oh, no, I see what you did there. So the vane. So you're eliminating. You're removing. Just to clarify this test that's being done. What we're going to talk about in the future, we're going to be getting into the arrow vanes and talking about the vanes. But what we're going to stress is that the wind signature, the total width of your vanes, affect wind drift more than the diameter of your shaft.
Right. But remember, I say 2764 and a 125. The result is technically identical. It's non-measurable difference.
Right. So you're saying that by eliminating the vanes and only testing wind drift based on shaft diameter, that the fattest arrow and the thinnest arrow that you tested the difference were practically unmeasurable.
Because it's very simple. Because people look at the size. I want you to go ahead and draw a circle on 2764 for the inch, and then draw a circle of 166, and concentrate them together and draw wind passing it.
Mm-hmm.
There's no difference.
Right now, is there? I know you're. What I love about your website, what I love about your products, is that you are very transparent. There's no smoke and mirrors. Everything you have has science to back it, and you are completely okay with sharing the results there and letting people see the data. Is there this test that you're speaking of? Do you have any data released?
No, actually, it was done way before we start recording, because it's me trying to find out. Gotcha. Because they're not to mention that all happened in about 2014 to 16. Shoulder surgery. Tony is the one who did all this for me.
Gotcha.
I can do the crossbow side, but you can't really shoot a crossbow with 125. Right.
Can you imagine? Just for shits and giggles, what would happen if you shot, say, a 166 out of a crossbow?
They did. It's called a voodoo, which made by Victory. It does not work well.
Okay.
Actually, in order to make it work, they put some aluminum pieces on the arrow shaft.
Wow. And
guess what? It screw up majorly. It caused a secondary and third. The secondary harmonics override the first harmonics, because you put weight on the arrow shaft that you shoot at.
I got you.
Because you need to expand the size to match the 240 ID.
Mm-hmm. No, I got you. That makes sense. So we have a 204. We release it. We draw on a target. We release the arrow. What negative effects does a 204 have on the behavior of my arrow in flight?
Compared to a 235, compared to a 246, and so on. Right on the get-go, remember, we say that the spine of arrow equals to the resistance of the material against being pressed, which means the first dynamic bend. As you decrease the diameter of the OD, you also increase the thickness of the wall. When you increase the thickness of the wall, you also decrease the ability of the ovalization of the shaft.
Okay, so
because in the shaft, in the center of them turning oval, it's going to be a lot harder. Right. Second, you also decrease the ability of torsion. The recovery of torsion become much more. In other words, the entire arrow's memory effect jumped up.
Gotcha. So
because the rigidity goes up, the durability goes up, the memory effects also goes up.
Gotcha.
Which means that the moment you move from a 246 to a 204, you need to at least mentally understand this arrow is going to take about 2 to 3 yards more to get out of that parabolic action, your artery paradox reaction.
Gotcha. And the reason for that is, the way I think of arrow flight and the ovalization, because we want to harness that, right? The ovalization isn't a bad thing if you can control it and use it to help you. And the way I think of it is like a spring. In order for a spring to have strength, it needs to be compressed, come back, compress, come back. And minimizing that ovalization is minimizing how much you can load that spring.
Correct, because the spring now actually take a lot more energy to load. While you're loading it and unloading it, the energy you put in it because of the parasitic loss of material change, more energy is consumed in the bending, in the torsion, and the flex portion because the void is thicker.
So we're losing. So to simplify all of that, because the arrow can't flex the way it should, it's using too much energy to try to flex, and therefore you're losing that energy.
More, not too much. First of all, there's not too much. You're using more energy initially for the initial cycles.
Gotcha.
So if you shoot a 204 same weight until compared to 246 or 300, I will guarantee you, if they are built identical with the same weight at 60 yards, the 300 will hit the highest, the 246, and then the 246.
Now, how does that translate into metrics? Is if it's using more energy, is it losing velocity? Is it losing? Is
both
it dropping
velocity,
faster?
Kinetic? You drop faster. The kinetic energy is used more because the parasitic loss is more. Now,
got it.
Can you overcome it? Answer: absolutely. Change of material, change of the construction approach. I mean, so everything else. Now you have to engineer to a different grade to get what you need. The fact is that in today's world, I can build you a 166 to shoot close to a 300, but you're going to pay a lot more. Right. You're going to put a lot more attention in the build.
And it's got to be perfect, right? Because everything you do,
precise.
Right, because everything you do is a bigger percentage compared to a 246, and all of those tolerances become a lot more important.
Because the ratio is different. Forward. Remember, in a 246, remember, you're sticking out further.
Okay.
So you'd be, say, 0.5 off center may only mean not much in 246, but that itself, plus the smaller of the insert, everything exaggerates.
Right. Now, if the walls are thicker, which means the durability, like we said, the arrow does become a little bit more durable. What does that do for us on impact? Is there any benefit to a smaller diameter arrow on impact, including penetration?
No, actually, that's totally based on the broadheads. Again, no matter what size arrow you use is the same broadhead. Now, of course, you use different broadhead, different designs, a whole different ballgame. We can't do that. Otherwise, there's no end to it. Assume we're using the same broadhead. Now, some arguments say that the arrow is thinner, so when the broadhead cut the hole, the arrow will pass that hole easier. Unless the arrow shaft is bigger than the broadhead.
Which in theory, let's be honest, in theory it makes sense. Something thinner should push through something a lot easier than something fatter.
But you shoot it with a broadhead to give you a cut that is over at least an inch. So what difference does it make?
Right. If the hole is an inch and your arrow is 2/46 of an inch or 1/10 of it, 1/10 of an inch, then it really doesn't.
Or even a 300 of an inch.
Is there any way to test that? Like, I know a lot of people like to use ballistic gel. In my opinion,
ballistic gel do not work well on this. You know why?
Because I was just going to say that.
Because the ballistic gel do not have lubricant. Lubricant causes blood. Second, the ballistic gel will give you a good idea of the broadhead, not the arrow shaft.
Right. Because and maybe I'm wrong with this, but the way I've seen a lot of tests done in ballistic gel, and ballistic gel is going to grab whatever you're shooting into it. So
but when you have a broadhead, it do not. Because with ballistic gel, when you cut it, the ballistic will open and it will close.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. It'll open for the broadhead, but it'll close back around the arrow. So it's not really opening a channel, so to speak.
Well, yes, the meat would do similar. But remember, when you shoot the animal, you're not shooting meat through meat. You're shooting. You're supposed to shoot the lungs to start with, or the heart,
through organs,
because you're dealing with different media.
Right.
The ballistic gel is one of the better metrics that we can use to measure the penetration of broadheads. The penetration of arrows. If you really want to, you can try it. I'll tell you the results are about the same.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, the broadhead is the one that opens.
Sure.
The grabbing of the... first of all, when you shoot a white-tailed deer, what is the diameter? What is the passing through of a white-tailed deer? 14 inch?
Give or take.
If you do a ballistic test, You put a 14-inch, you got a hole. You can't see anything. You need something like 24-inch. So now you go in, you got a lot more bullet on the back, but in actuality, when you shoot an animal, the arrow went through so fast, it's not going to be funny.
Exactly. Yeah, I was just curious because a friend of mine...
No, it's not that, because for demonstration purposes. We need to understand, just like all experiment, you need to understand what are you really testing. Second, what are the results you intend to prove? When you notice that all the factors on the criteria of your experiment is not even giving you an idea, the only thing you're just trying to prove an argument, right? And build that towards whatever you need. You are not showing anything.
So then, in your testing, then what we're saying here is that based on your testing, a micro diameter or a small diameter shaft does not inherently penetrate farther than a 246 would, let's say, with everything else the same veins, same weight,
because
same
remember,
broadheads.
That is where, I mean, at the same time, when people shoot different arrow and on different person, their setup. And remember, everything is a variable. Just like me, I remember days when I shot the VTAC, and I told my good buddy Paul how wonderful that bow is. The moment he got a 26-inch of it, it sucked. The penetration don't work. The launch cycle is not good. The speed is not there because I moved from a 29.5-inch draw cycle to a 26-inch.
Right. Hey, listen, I'm a short draw guy, so I get it. You know, that's why, to be honest with you, if I was a little bit longer, I would probably shoot an arrow that was like, let's say 460, 465 grains. I think
but you can always build a really good arrow under 350 grain. I mean, as long as your poundage is not 70. At 70 pounds, you should never shoot an arrow that's under 340.
Yeah. So I am shooting a 70. You and I'm not going to give away the details yet because I would like to talk about my specific build when we get to the arrow build portion. But I am shooting 70 pounds, which kind of not limits, but I kind of have an idea of where I like to be. At this point, all things included, lighted knock, inner tubes, broadheads, everything all said and done out the door, I want to be under 410. If I'm under 410, 420 maybe. Under 420, I'm content. It's good speed, it's good weight.
The moment you move the Aero Contour 2.0, it's out the door. You can't.
Yeah, and that's why when we were talking, I was talking about maybe going to 3.5. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. Maybe we'll mess around.
I think we're getting long on this one.
Yeah, a little bit.
So I want to talk about the last part of the insert on the 204.
Insert on the 204. Go ahead.
Yeah, because the 204, if you really follow every single instruction I have, hydro flow, everything, and so on, you can live a way of using, because like 204, the smallest 204 that class we know of is actually 2015. That will be the carbon impact fat shaft. And the biggest ID of the 204 class is the Element Typhoon. It have shown as big as 207. So if you put a 2015 in a 207, you're looking at 5,500. If you went through the hydro flow process, make sure everything works with the field point, and then stand the arrow straight up, and then make sure everything stays, you'll get a very good arrow. If you do not do any of them, the arrow shoot like crap.
I gotcha. And the slow set epoxy, refresh my memory. It can fill a gap up to 1 millimeter or 2 millimeters.
Depends on brand. In the case of JBL, remember we're talking just basic insert. Using JBL, you can fill up. Actually, with JBL, the filling of the gap is infinite.
Infinite. Okay.
Because I remember the days when I built engines. If I screw up on an engine block, I can drill that thing out, and then if the bring wheel back, I put JBL in it, smash it all the way up, and then machine it and tap the hole all the way through. So what's the thickness? Whatever JBL is. It's a filler.
Okay. I got you.
So actually, that I consider one of the best material. I hope I would have invented it, but I didn't. But it's a very good material. I mean, technically, you can easily fill 50,000 as long as you hydro flow it.
Okay.
Now, let me repeat again. Hydro flow is defined as you put a fuel point. This is what I do. I put a fuel point on the insert. I put the glue on the insert. I push it into the shaft. I'm going to hold the fuel point and the insert. And then I would turn the shaft on the APS. Then I'll remove my broadhead fuel point holding hand and spin the arrow.
Okay, without holding the
without holding it. That instantly you can visually you can see the fuel point didn't wobble. The moment you did that, you stand the arrow straight up. Now, what you want to do is that you want to stay for about, say, JBL, you look at about 15 to 20 minutes. You bring it out and you do it one more time to make sure that it did not go off, because you still have time to recover.
Yeah.
If you see sometimes when your broadhead or your arrow is too slanted, the entire thing can canter. Now you're screwed.
Yeah. And I just want to point out how critically important that last thing is that you just said. Because I've had an experience where I had half outs and I had that happen. And every third or fourth shot, my arrows were cracking. The front of my arrow, because the insert was just slightly canted and it's not impacting everything perfectly straight. And as we all know, the weakest chain in the link is typically the one that breaks. So wherever that cant was is where all of my arrows kept breaking. And I ended up breaking like 5 out of a dozen at one point.
Now let me teach you a trick. If you really enjoy building arrows, make friends with your local archery dealer and try to get the carton archery box with tons of holes where they put the arrow in. Get one of those. You're going to love it.
Makes your life easy,
technically
for sure.
guarantee your arrow to be straight. Don't just use a cup, because unless you've got a tube that's really long, the moment you put arrow, they always add angle to it.
I see what you're saying. Something that holds at the bottom and the top, so that way it's perfect.
That's the reason you buy those. Remember, if you go to Eastern and buy those kids' arrow, 144 in a box, get one of those boxes. You're gonna love it.
I got you. That's awesome.
And I think we're going to stop here, because I think anything more we're going to talk about the 204 on the Knox side, and then 166. I think that will pretty much be it. Because you understand why I make 204 in the 204 plus and a 204 minus, because the variation is too big.
Right, because it's from 2015 to 207. Gotcha. Did you want to talk about the Knox now, or do you want to talk about the Knox in the next
How much time have we talked?
We're at an hour 15.
Okay, I'll talk about Knox. The Knox is 204 is easy, because when I designed the Knox, now, this is the part. Every 204 class is supposed to be near 204. So if you got to say Element Typhoon or some of the other brands, measure both sides. You want the side is closest to the 204 to be your Knox side. And then the other, you want to be on the insert side, because the insert, you can fill that with glue.
Right.
The Knox, there's nothing you can do.
And we don't want to glue our Knox in.
No. Because just like even on a non-translucent Knox, you want to able to replace it.
Yes.
To be fair with you, if you look at how all the top shooters like Tim Gillingham, when he shoots, say, ASA, IBO, or whatever, you can see every 3 shots or 2 shots, you actually change your Knox.
That's incredible.
No. If you see shooting a pin now, you'll notice every time you get the arrow back, you take the Knox off, you will spin the arrow on the pin to make sure it's straight. And if you do that, then he will look at the Knox, and then he will decide to trash it or put a new one on.
Okay. And some people would call that anal, but the truth is it's just someone who's in tune with their gear, knows what they want, and won't accept anything less than perfect.
So let me ask you, if because of that you lose 1 point, how are you going to recover from it? With all the top competitor, you just give up 1 point. It's not
sometimes a $5.99 loses you the tournament.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that is pretty much what the 5 knot is. On the A knot is before it's our lightest knot. It is 5 grains. The throat is, again, like all 5 knot, the throat is 112 thousandths. And it's the only knot in the 204 class that actually proven to take a 120-pound push without breaking.
Wow.
Because
a cool metric. I like
Chris
that.
McDonald have used that knot in 2007 on a 120-pound elite bow on an elephant. It's on a catalog. If you look at the history, I think it's 2009 cover catalog, upper right-hand corner.
I could not even imagine pulling back 120 pounds.
You're shooting an elephant, okay? Do you know how big an elephant is? African elephant?
Massive.
Okay. In other words, you size up 2 SUVs stacking on top of each other.
That's incredible.
You want to shoot that with 75 bow?
No. I wouldn't want to shoot it at all, but, that's besides the point. Oh, man. So, all right. So we got through the Knox. I think this is a good place to cut this. I don't think there's much more to talk about when it comes to the 204.
The 204, until the moment we go to Aero Concept and then the stuff that Jerry Martin out of X-Ring Custom come out, because that system is 100% with Aero Concept. So I want to leave to the Aero Concept before I start talking about it.
When we get into Aero Concept and we start talking about the builds, do you think Jeremy Martin's, because I know you and I don't want to spoil it now, but you told me that you designed something specifically for Jeremy Martin, and it's only available through him. Would he be interested in joining us for the 204 conversation?
Give him a call and let him ask him. You got Jeremy's number, and then just ask him. All right?
Yeah. Okay.
Because he's selling it anyway. So, the fun part is mine, the center part, and all is good. Because he called it the Titan series. So, if anybody interested in that, talk to him on the Titans.
All right.
Those are good. That is no downside to it I can find, besides complexity. But if you're building 204, 166, you already told people you don't mind complexity.
Yeah. And basically what we're getting here is Jeremy Martin is a certified dealer for Dorge, and he came to Dorge with an issue, I guess, with the inserts for the 204s, exactly. or he wanted some kind of improvement, and you two worked together and came up with it. And that new insert addresses any issues that are in the 204 half-out build problem. And we're just going to leave it at that because we'll touch on that in the future.
Right, and it's called the Titan for him.
Yes, the Titan.
And you can buy them now. If you just cannot wait, then you have to have it now.
You just have to have it now, yeah. So the next episode, we're going to be diving into the 166s, and I think
that's going to be a big wide dive.
That's going to be a big one.
Because the 166, I have no choice, but with the 166, it's technically going to be the Aero Concept to the beginning of it.
Right. So we're going to
reverse the process.
Okay, yeah, and I'm fine with that, and we're probably going to make a lot of enemies with the 166 when we start talking about it, but that's okay.
Not really, because I can prove it. I mean, if you want to argue with facts, I'm not going to help you. But then I will tell you the benefit and how I alleviate the problem with 166 using system I designed. Is it going to be cheap? No. But if that is what you want, go for it.
Then that's what we'll give you.
Exactly. And I will teach you how to make it right. There's nothing wrong, because the fact is that when you do archery, you do it for the fun of it.
For the fun.
If you really want to the look of it, you make it happen, but do it correctly. Understand what you're up into, and then that's what reason you do it. Don't just do it because I say, oh, my friend, you're shooting 166, look at me, I do that too.
Yeah.
No, that's the wrong thing to do.
Right. So we're going to get into the 166s. After the 166s, just by design, we're going to have to start to touch on what Aero Concept is. We've talked about it a bunch. We just haven't actually talked about what it is. And this is what I've been waiting to get to, because I absolutely love it.
166 is going to be really big because I have so much to offer in 166.
Okay. And with that,
it's like 4 different systems.
Sorry. Yeah. And with that, we've talked somewhat about the inserts, but I think along the way we're going to talk a little bit more specifically about the inserts, what they offer. But also, the most important part are the vanes. And to me, the difference between the market standard vanes and the vanes that you have to offer and what they do to an arrow in flight is absolutely insane.
But most people don't understand.
None of you should miss it. None of you should miss that episode. If you guys build your own arrows, you should not miss the episode about vanes. Dorge, I'm going to end it there. Today has been awesome. I'm really enjoying talking about these arrows, going down, talking about the positives and the negatives. I really hope the listeners are too. You guys know the deal. Go on down to the bottom. Leave us a review. Let us know what you think. If you have any questions, reach out to us or leave them down below. Leave them on the YouTube video. It's probably the easiest way for me to find them. And I like to communicate. I answer literally every single comment that's left on our videos. I or Angelo respond to them personally. We love talking to you guys. We love having it. With that being said, Dorge, thanks again for your time. We'll probably end up skipping next week, I'm assuming, because of the outdoor show.
Probably I would do it on Tuesday, maybe in a hotel. We'll get it moving on, or we can do it or we can record another episode on Thursday. Thursday, depends on the time.
If I end up making it down there, you think it'd be possible to do one in person, or are you too busy the Super Bowl weekend?
Let's see what we can do.
All right, we'll see what we can do, guys. We're gonna leave it at that. Remember, success is just a commitment away, and until next week, have a great day.
Mm-hmm.